Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Special Finance Committee budget meeting of January 22, 2026. Long before Canada or British Columbia existed, the Siano and Sauk First Nations lived in balance with the lands and waters that sustain life in what is now Machosen. Healthy lands support healthy people. This acknowledgement is one step in supporting Indigenous communities as we continue to listen, learn, and act in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. Please be sure to have your cell phones turned off during the meeting. Mayor Little will be joining us by conference through the laptop on the table. Welcome. Number 2 of the agenda is the agenda additions and approval. Are there any additions or changes that committee would like to state? Moved by Mayor Little, second by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Yes.
I just want to do a quick check to see whether Mayor Little can hear us well enough.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Thanks
Great,
very much.
great. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so this meeting is intended to be a space where inclusion is paramount and all individuals are treated with dignity. We strive to ensure everyone feels welcome and respected. I ask that you remain respectful as you present your comments to council, staff, and visitors in the gallery this afternoon. It is a moment now on the agenda to ask for public participation. Please note that all comments made during public participation will be heard by the Finance Committee and taken into consideration. Is there anyone from the community that would like to speak? If so, please step to the podium. You have 4 minutes to speak. State your name and the street in which you live. There is a timer on the main table here. When the yellow light shines brighter, it just means you have about 30 seconds to finish up.
Gary Lamb, Hackmore Drive. I'm looking to clarify the agenda. Public participation, are we still able to provide public input in 4A?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to reports, and I'd ask our CFO, Mr. Jeffrey Creek, to step forward and give us a staff report on the 2026 to 2030 draft financial 5-year plan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, or Acting Mayor and Council. So this is our latest report on the draft financial plan. So waiting on the BC assessment completed roll to come up with an estimated tax increase for 2026. This will be updated again come the end of March once we get the revised roll and the final numbers from BC assessment. But we'll start working through this one. There we go. So the first thing that has come up to my attention, we're going through the insurance renewal right now, and insurance asked about the EOC roof. So back in February 2024, there was a roof inspection done on the municipal-owned buildings, and it said to seek a replacement for the EOC roof as soon as possible. So at that time, I believe staff told insurance that they would be replacing that roof in 2024. And then because of the shuffle in administration, kind of got behind, didn't know about it. So that project didn't happen in 24, didn't happen in 2025. When I said it wouldn't be replaced until 2027, she asked for an inspection report. I found out we had one from 2024 saying it's no good. And so right now they are not going to renew insurance or cover any losses as a result of the roof on the EOC building. If anything were to happen, there's quite a bit of emergency equipment in there. And so staff is recommending to move forward with replacing the roof to avoid taking on the liability that would result in any damage to equipment. coming from extreme weather, that type of thing. But leave that up to council to decide at the end of this meeting. On to changes to the operation budget for 2026. So we got a new budget from Ecom in December, and they had lowered the annual cost by $24,309, down to, I think it's just over $134,000 in total. So good news there. Next one up was VIMQ. I had a meeting with all the CFOs in the CRD because the RCMP hasn't really made any headway with the VIMQ being launched in 2026. Nobody else was recording a value. They had much bigger ones, like Victoria had $2.1 million estimated charge, so they're not booking anything in their budget this year for it. I figured we could slash our budget from 37 in half, take off 18,500, and say we can increase over the next 2 years before everybody feels that one here. Third one up, policing overall. So because we received billing for accommodation and civilian staffing costs in 2025 for the first time, the amount that we're going to have left in our policing reserve at the end of 2025 is less than what was estimated in the original operational budget. So I've had to increase the amount of police tax that we're going to need to recover in 2026 by 10,400 in order to smooth out the increase over the next 5 years. Next up was grants and aid for permissive tax exemptions. So once we got the assessed values for all the properties, and then based on what the current estimated tax rate would be, I had to bump up the district portion by another $25,283 to make it about $123,000 in total. And then based on feedback from the public and council discussion, staff has included the other taxing authorities now into the budget, estimated at $95,000. We have not received the requisitions for any of those taxing authorities, so I haven't been able to finalize a number, but we'll have that before we finalize the tax rate for 2026. But right now, estimating at $95,000. And then our planning department, they've got quite a bit of work still ongoing. A number of reports coming to council in 2026. And so we bumped them from 1 day a week up to 2 days a week. And that will end up costing additional $25,000. So, as mentioned, this report was based on the new BC assessment information for 2026. So here's a comparison of what was happening in the district of Chosen for 2026. 2026 at the top, 2025 below. So we've lost 6 residential properties, gained 1 utility, and lost 4 farms. The total value of taxable assessments in Chosen dropped by $15,500,000, and that's with the addition of $29 million of taxable assessments coming because there's no more permissive tax exemptions. So it would have been about a $45 million loss overall if the exemptions had remained in place. Next up, here's a breakdown of those residential numbers. Of the 1,962. So we've got 79 vacant lots, which is up from 57. Same number of single family lots. There's 27 fewer residential ALR properties, 2 fewer farms, and 1 additional other. Some good news actually came out of the PILT assessment information. Our federal owned properties increased by a total of $47 million over last year, which is about a 19% increase overall. Now, there's a 1 caveat on here in that they generally don't pay the full amount that BC Assessment says. The federal government has a number of assessors who used to work for BC Assessment, so they know all how it's built, and they come up with their own numbers. So I haven't booked the full amount that could be collected into the budget just to kind of give us a buffer, but I have been able to bump up the amount of revenue received from PILT by a decent amount. So that has helped actually lower the district tax rate, the RCMP, and the Ecom, because we collect all of that from PILT as well. And so overall, in Chosen, the average residential property went down by 3%, business, no change. Rec nonprofit went down by 1%, and farms were no change either. So when you're looking at this, if your property had a larger decrease in value than 3%, then your taxes are going to be lower than the estimated increase that we show here. And if your property increased in value, then your taxes are going to be higher than the estimated increase here. Next. So right now, based on the numbers that we know and the budget that we have, here are the different mill rates for Machosen, the RCMP, ECOM. We got the West Shore Parks and Recreation Society requisition and the library. And this is where there's a bit of a change. So my original report showed West Shore Parks and Rec was going to go up by $1.90 and library was going to go up by $1.69. It's actually going down. West Shore is going to go down by $12.23 and the library is going to go down by $4.87. And this is because of that change in the permissive tax exemptions. Most of those exempt properties are class 8, and so they've got a higher tax rate or mill rate on those for West Shore Parks and Rec and Library. So because of the recovery on there, it ends up reducing, even though West Shore's budget increased by just under 1% and the library went up by 6.5%. The average residential property would end up paying less. Now, all that essentially just got moved onto the Machosen line itself, so save $17 over there, but your Machosen change went up by $17 to offset. And then for business, kind of the same deal. So you got a 4% increase on the Machosen rate, 7% on police, 150% on ecom. That's because of the full year charge and not as much coming from reserve to cover it. And then their West Shore Parks and Rec went down by $6.83 and the library went down by $2.39. So with this current budget that we have, there's a number of outstanding items. The biggest one being wages and benefits. So that comes from our collective agreement, still in negotiation with the union. Don't know exactly when that's going to be finalized. Hopefully before April, but don't know how long these things go. Otherwise, we'll just stick with the estimate that we have and kind of keep accruing retro pay and that type of thing. The next big one is policing costs. Don't have all of them from the city of Langford for accommodation and civilian staffing yet. Once we get those in, then I can finalize how much we actually have in reserve to carry forward and then adjust the police tax rate as needed. So, what do we have to do next? We've got to finalize our operating capital budgets. So whether or not we want to move forward with the EOC roof repair, any other changes that might be needed for the operating budgets. And then if we have no changes, we can have an open house next month in February. If you'd like to see some changes to the operating budgets, then we come back with another report in February, do the open house in March, and then April will come back once we've got the final numbers from BC Assessment, finalize the tax rate, get the financial plan approved, and then move towards tax bills. I think that is it. Questions?
Okay, thank you very much for your report. Okay, committee, do we have any questions for the CFO? Yes, please do have a seat with us.
Oh,
Councillor Shukin?
sure. Maybe begin with the EOC roof. Could I ask what the cost of insuring, if you can break it out, what the cost of insuring the EOC building? Can we do that?
Good question. I'd have to take a look. Our last year's bill was about $44,000 for all property, and so I could break that out and see, take the number, take the assessed value of the EOC building, and then calculate that. But I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll bring that back for you.
It may not be super relevant, but if we were to move ahead with approving the $45,000 for the roof, are we expecting that to just come from the currently allocated capital budget, or could it possibly come from reserves?
Through the chair, that would end up coming from the reserve. So I'd end up taking that either. We could take it out of the building replacement reserve, general capital, or the fire equipment, either either one.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's an obvious one. Thank you for clarifying.
Mayor Little, you have a question?
No, I have a comment actually. Don't you reserve those for you?
That's up to you, whatever you would like.
No, I was just going to say that through the chair to the, excuse me, to the CFO, I'm in favor of replacing the roof without the insurance. And if it was, the roof was to fail, there's very expensive equipment in that facility in terms of communications, radios, computers. There's SAR equipment as well as a new vehicle. If those are damaged or lost completely, it would be a real shame because we wouldn't have the insurance to cover that. So I don't think I think we're in a situation where this is a must do as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thanks very much, Councillor Donaldson. I just had one question, and through the chair to the CFO. How old is the current roof?
Good question. I do not know, but I gotta through the chair. Yeah, I don't think it said in the inspection report, but however old that building was, because it was covered in moss and then there's missing siding and corners on it. They were talking about, so they were saying it was well past its service life.
Well, it sounds like it is, and I had spoken in favor of holding back when you heard from staff that we could wait. But different situation, not having the insurance. And maybe Councillor Johnson, I like the idea of if we just tackle each item and get through each questions or take a round on each one, that would be a help as we go through it. And then can I just understand properly, we'll hold back on motions until after we hear from the public?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shukin.
Thank you. Okay, so if we're proceeding as Councillor Gray suggests, and it's probably a good idea, I'm not sure what the next issue or matter would be. I've got no more questions or thoughts on the roof.
Okay, so what we could do, there's two ways of doing it. We could go through the PowerPoint, as Mr. Creek does have the controller there to go through those slides. And then in the last page of the, or we can go through the agenda as it's written. They kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, I do have some questions about matters on the slide, but it might be good to go through the
Okay.
Mr. Creek's report.
Okay, so right now we're in the part of the agenda, page 3 for discussion, which is the capital. So we've just discussed the EOC roof, and there's information on that. And then we go into the operating, and we have a chart there. So the first thing in the first category is the e-com cost. Okay.
I have no comment there.
Okay.
Seems as a cost coming our way, and I'm happy to see it decreased.
Right. And MQ is would be the similar comments. It's also decreasing. We're happy with that. Okay, and policing. Any comments for that?
Yeah, I just had a comment. There's been quite a bit in the news about the RCMP building,
Yes.
and I wondered what impact that might have on us. And I don't know, Mayor Little's been meeting with the mayor. She may be able to describe a little bit about, what that is. And Mayor Little, perhaps that is reserved for a council meeting, or if you could let us know a little bit about it today. It's kind of confusing to follow the news. But so status and then costs.
Mayor Little, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, the West Shore RCMP building is also past its due date. The three communities that own the building, Colwood, View Royal, and Langford, have all agreed last term, the latter part of last term, and then early in this term in 2023 to move forward on plans to rebuild it. They have been involved in this different model for scoping out the projects. There's not one project manager. There's a sort of a team of people that are looking after the specs and for the moving forward with the project. Now they have a contractor, Colliers International, who has put forward some models. This was discussed in 2023. They moved forward with a loan authorization bylaw at the CRD. So the CRD would hold the loan on behalf of the 3 municipalities and administer it, but the CRD would not have any news, any oversight of the project. So that would be strictly Langford, View Royal, and Colwood. How this affects Chosen, it doesn't really affect Chosen. RCAO Bob Payette and I are not at the table because we're not owners of the Langford West Shore RCMP building. We're renters in the building. So, Councillor Gray, you asked about impact. I guess the longer this project is delayed, the cost will certainly go up and our rent will go up. I don't know about the overall cost of the building. Like I say, we haven't been at the table in the negotiations, but I thought up until recently, all 3 communities were aligned with moving forward with the process. As I understand it, View Royal and Langford have signed off on the project as it is now in order to move forward with the loan authorization bylaw, which has passed, I think it's passed first reading at the CRD. It needs consent from all of the councils to proceed to 3rd reading. And as I understand, Colwood has asked for a pause. They've asked for a 3rd-party review. And it's difficult, as you can imagine, because some of the specifications of the building are not available for public consumption. You can imagine you wouldn't want drawings from an RCMP building out in the community. You wouldn't want where the electricity is, where the alarms are, that kind of thing. So it's a little bit of a difficult process, having a lot of the documents secure with the people that are reviewing them, but not for public consumption. I'm just wondering what else I can tell you about it. I have offered to sort of try and bring all the parties together. Scott Goodmanson replied, but I haven't heard whether council want me to intervene and have a meeting so that we can all discuss this at one table, because even though we're not paying for the building, certainly Highlands, the Chosen, and the 2 First Nations that the West Shore provides services for, it impacts them whether this building moves forward in a timely manner or not. Anything else that I can tell you?
No, that sounds quite thorough. Thank you very much for the input. Council members, any other questions in that regard? Councillor Gray?
And I suppose it's those accommodation costs and those kinds of things through the chair to our CFO. But those new ones don't come until a new building's built. Okay, so we'll sort of sit with where we at, and thanks for the estimates that you're making, Mr. Creek. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so the next topic is the grants and aid progressive tax exemption, and some numbers on the screen here. Councillor Shukin.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson, through you to Mr. Creek. I wonder if you could go back to a few slides where you're showing the residential increase, and this is related to the grants and aid. Okay, so just so I'm clear, big picture, the big finale, I think you're projecting a 3.9% residential rate increase right now. Is that what that says? 3.09%?
Through the chair, no, that kind of sums up everything that's going in there, that 2.68, 5.78, 146, -5, -4. So that works out to be that $65.52 ends up being a 3.09% increase over last year's sum from those 5 mill rates.
Okay.
So not quite a 3.09. Just the district portion is that 2.68% increase. And then because the RCMP cost increased by $260,000,
yeah,
ecom went up from 45 to $135,000.
Yeah.
Those are the big drivers of it. But in total, you'd be looking at just on the district portion with RCMP ecom, 16, 82. So you're looking at almost a 6% in total increase.
Okay. And that does include, so that my question is what is the projected tax increase, residential tax increase? And it includes what we've allocated or potentially will allocate for the grants and aid, the 95,000. That is inclusive.
Through chair.
Okay,
Correct. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Councillor Donaldson, just a quick point. We talked about the grant and aid and topping up the normal amount that we have in recognition of what I will confess to be a mistake. That I in terms of the way I voted, and I come to that reality after having spoken to many of the groups who are impacted by that. And I will note that there is one representative of one of these groups here today, so thank you very much for attending. This came up at a meeting a number of weeks ago, and I think we've been, in terms of bringing this forward, we've been open, and some people are worried about so-called transparency, but this has been talked about quite a bit. Mr. Creek has brought it forward, and he's put it into the allocation that we have right now. Mr. Creek, is this, I'm wondering, through you again, Councillor Donaldson, I wonder if there's almost a bathtub effect here, because we're not having our taxpayers absorb the amounts that these nonprofits would have, the obligations they would have to the other taxing authorities. Our residents will see a tax benefit there. Is that correct?
So through the chair, like the residents would have seen a benefit without having to cover the other taxing authorities.
Okay.
With council moving in the direction of covering them, then just kind of comes out in a big wash.
Okay. Okay.
Like there are all those other taxing authorities that pop up, like the school and the BC Transit, all that type of thing. Like those will be lower than expected, like we've seen with West Shore and the library there, where it's like, hey, their budget requisition went up for the year, but everybody's paying less. We'll see similar items with that for the rest of them. It's just that the chosen part gets higher.
Yes.
But in the end, we end up collecting the whole thing anyway, just from the data.
Is it true though? There's going to be some tricky, complex accounting here, but is it almost like, does it even out in a way, whether we absorb it, whether the residents pay to the other authorities? Does it balance itself out in the long term, or the bigger picture? If I do here,
yeah, it's basically a wash, right? It's like if you want to look at the whole thing, it's like, if everybody was collecting a total of $1 billion, whether we're getting it on that line or the other line, it comes out in a wash. So I wouldn't say there's much like tricky accounting. Like we just go into their tax accounts when we calculate the taxes and just say, here's your credit. Offset is to the grant and aid permissive tax exemption account. Done.
okay,
There's nothing too crazy with it.
perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Just on the same topic, and thanks for the questions to get that clear, Councillor Shukin. Through the chair, I wondered, Mr. Creek, the $25,283 district tax increase, could we just clarify that's for, I believe that's for, there were two new properties. That would be the BC Parks Foundation property that would come on this year. And the second was the BC Humane Society. I think that's what that figure is referring to.
Through the chair, a little bit. What really drove it up was that the YMCA properties, even though we saw that recreation properties had about a 0% increase or a 1% decrease, the YMCA properties actually went up by double digits. So their value far exceeds what the estimate was when the reports were originally done, and that's what drives up the vast majority of that 25,000. Was the properties went from worth like 2.4 million to 2.8 million. That type of thing.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, which is planning.
Could I just
Councillor Gray, did you have a
Can I
comment?
just drop back to the grants and aid? So the $95,000, that accounts for, I think, that would be like just over 3% of the tax increase that we're facing at the residential property owners.
Through the chair, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, planning. Councillor Shukin?
I wonder if I could ask either Mr. Payette or Mr. Creek. I have big plans for the planner in 2026. I expect that with the buffer land, she's going to be a very important person in terms of moving ahead with that. The fire hall, I think, is going to use her assistance as well. And there's just, I feel like increasingly matters around land use planning and planning for the district get more and more complicated. So I can see the perfect rationale for moving our professional planner from 1 day a week to 2 days a week. But I wonder if there's anything else that either Mr. Payette or Mr. Creek are anticipating in terms of the planner's use.
Well, and I would add to that the agricultural community is also interested in pursuing the home plate concept as well. CFO Creek, do you have some input on that? And when you're thinking about that, can you explain to us, for the benefit of our residents as well, we did have the planner come in for a second day every week to put the housing through. That was based on some money that the government gave us as well, and where we're at with that in comparison to the 25,000, please.
Through the chair, thank you. For the housing initiative that was funded through the province, so they gave the district just under $172,000 back in 2024, and some money was spent then, carried over into 2025. We didn't come close to using all of it. The planner was able to do the reports, the advertising, the open houses, etc. And we're still waiting on a response from the province whether or not we have to give the money back or if we can use it for the other projects that are coming up, what ended up as a result of the housing needs assessment. So that one's still outstanding, and that's where the original budget for 2024 and 25 was always the district's paying for 1 day, province is paying for the other day. So now unless we get the answer back before the budget's finalized that we can use that funding for her to do other projects, then the district will be on the hook for the second day going forward for those types of projects with the home plate, buffer land, fire hall, and then everything else that kind of pops up around here. I'd pass that off to the CAO as to what might be coming across his plate for development and zoning permits, that type of thing.
Great, thank you. CAO Payette, you have some input for us on that, please?
Through the chair, yeah, just to add, supplement, I guess, the day-to-day operations, and the planner gets involved with reviewing quite a number of items business applications, building permits, subdivision, and after council meetings as well. So 2 days is warranted, a week actually more, but we're just asking for 2 this year.
Great, thank you. Councillor Gray.
Just to say, I'm not sure if the mayor would like to say anything.
Mayor
I
Little?
see her there.
Thank you.
Great. I guess my point on this one was I think this is something that we should probably get an information sheet just to lay out what is involved in order that the public are also aware what the projects are we're thinking about. We do have a strategic planning day coming up, and that will help us council to know. But I think it's worth laying out for people. We're basically doubling the time for our planner. I think Councillor Shukin said, yeah, there's a number of things on the go. I've got some ideas of things that I'd like to see done. We're kind of held back in Metchosin by the size of our staff. And I just heard the CEO say maybe we need more time. So I think just a sheet that lays out what the projects are, what we're doing differently would be helpful. And I want to thank the CFO for the explanation just now about why the cost is so much less than what we budgeted in the past. And I gather that's because we didn't actually use all those funds. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have some outstanding budget items which the CFO has explained about wages and benefits, police costing. Any other comments on that, Councillor Gray?
Just a question through the chair to the CFO. I take it all of these items, or there's 3 items, will all likely increase the budget and therefore tax rates?
Through the chair, yes. We've already seen increases in our dental benefit and extended life. Still waiting on short-term disability, long-term disability, ADD, weekly indemnity, and then wages will go up by whatever the region's kind of going with. So we're waiting on other municipalities to finalize their agreement before we do ours.
Thank you.
Councillor Shukin?
Through you, Councillor Donaldson. Mr. Creek, do you or Mr. Pye have any idea how many bargaining tables there are right now? The union and local governments? I think there's a few, right?
Through the chair, off the top of my head, there's CRD's working on it, City of Victoria, District of Saanich, maybe the CAO has a few more, but those are the ones I've heard of. Oh, there you go. BC Ambulance is going they're potentially striking.
And I guess we've been through this a number of years ago. I think we end up being, I believe, if I'm recalling properly, at the end of the chain. So some of the bigger municipalities settle, and then we basically fall into practice. So this isn't, if Mr. Creek is projecting what the wage and benefit increase might be, it's because there's a whole bunch of other negotiations that will essentially determine what we get. Yeah. So.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the current estimated tax increase. Councillor Gray.
So I just wanted to ask about that. There were a couple of points. Maybe the first one is that we had at council last week, or was it the week before, we looked at the budgets from West Shore Parks and Recs and Greater Victoria Library, and we passed a motion that we'd send a letter to the Greater Victoria Library about the increase in tax and the load that put on our community. And then we got the budget package saying that the cost to each individual household was $1.69. Then today we learned that's actually a reduction in by I think it was $4.88. So I just wondering if, and I'll leave it, just wanted to mention it today for the benefit of the mayor. We may want to reconsider that motion. It's a little bit hard to go forward with a letter like that when we're actually seeing a reduction. I understand from the CFO that that's because of the PTE and other, you know, the numbers have changed. But just the same, it doesn't seem to me to be a good look. But the other question I had was, if we look at the number in the document of a tax increase for the district, not including, including the RCMP and that, I guess, it's about 5.76%. I'm taking the $83.07 and dividing by $14.43, some figure we had earlier on the cost, the 1% cost per household. So that means that if that's more or less something like that, 5.76, then we take away the permissive tax exemption, 3%. We're down to about 2.5% tax. Then maybe I can ask the CFO. I think there's a 1% allocation to build up our reserves. Yeah, and then 0.85% for the planner. It means that the tax increase is only 0.74%. And so I'm struck that the increase should be greater than inflation, or where are we at? I just don't know how that's working out. So it's just more of a general question.
So through the chair, yeah, it would be very small. Part of that is because of what we've been able to gain through the built, because of their value going up so high. And most of their property comes under Class 6, which has a much higher mill rate than residential, which, even though we're not booking the full amount into the budget, does offset a decent amount. And it was what we received this year was higher than what was budgeted. So it stacked the two on top of each other. Because $30,000 is 1% around here, we received $50,000 more this year than what was estimated from build. So then when we stack them, it lowers everybody else's tax bill.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I was looking at those numbers, wondering what's going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Little, Councillor Gray has asked where we might be reconsidering the letter to the library. Did you wish to have a comment on that?
Yeah, Councillor Gray, I'm not looking at, whether it's $1.90 or $2.90 or $3. I still think that we pay, and CFO could correct me if I'm wrong, about $330,000 a year for the greater public library. We don't even have a library in our community. That's a huge expense. That $40,000 that put towards the school, for instance, could do, and that's per year. That's a whole lot of good. And I just think it's important that we communicate with the library that they are doing this. We don't get any libraries within our community, even a mobile library in our community. And we hesitate to support any further increases in our allotment that we are to pay for. I'm still in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Well, I guess we'll have a council meeting coming up and we can maybe chat about it a little bit more then. It seems to me we're, some residents are about 15 minutes away from a library, and if you live lots of places in Victoria, you're 15 minutes away from a library. It's not really that far. And we do have the service available to our residents. But I'm also concerned that we play, and in your role, CRD Mayor Little, is to, you have been the vice chair. And, I think it's important that we support the regional services that are important to our residents.
Thank you. Okay, so any other questions on the budget thus far? Okay, the next part here is next steps. So there is a question before us. Does council want to add the EOC roof repair to the 2026 capital budget?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Do we need a motion for this? Just, yes, a motion to answer that.
Just to say, I support it as well. But I asked earlier if we're going to hear from the public and get their views before we start going through motions, or either or. I'm okay on the ELC roof. It's straightforward, but we may want to hear from the community.
Yes, we could do that. So This would actually be a good time to do that because it comes in between some of the things that are before us. There's also on page, I think it's the last page, page 7. Are there any comments about the spreadsheet that's in the package? Or are we satisfied that we've covered this off? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Donaldson. I want to say thanks to the CFO for putting all this information together. It's a pretty complicated thing to bring it all into one piece. But when I looked at the document, before the meeting, I realized that I couldn't understand the sheet in front of me. And that's because it doesn't track with the quarterly financial reports. And so you can't actually tell by looking at the document what we're actually approving. And so I had a word with Mr. Creek and the CEO yesterday. And so today, at Council, we've received some more refined documents that show us more or less by department within the district what's going on. By the way, it's not talking about a line-by-line budget, but rather 30,000 feet look, but sorting the numbers out a little bit differently. And so I want to say thanks for the summary we got today to look at. But my concern is that before we proceed, we should take a look at those documents and share them with the public so they too can read the documents and let us know what they think for those that are interested before we move to approval. I'm kind of thinking that once we complete the budget and at our point of approval, I'm not talking about the bylaw, but the financial plan, we should be able to track from that, then to our quarterly reports, and then to our, what do we think about our review of the quarterly reports tied back to the budget, a sheet that we have actually approved here at the table. And then we can follow it all along. And I think the value of that is, and we did that for the first rounds on council. And I think last year we got to a similar document. I just think it's important in terms of the two big pillars that we've got of transparency and then accountability. I think in the end, it's accurate to say that the CFO does need, or the CEO does need to eventually move things or aggregate things into the categories we see before us on page 7 for the bylaw. But I'd like to see the document beforehand shared with the public that shows how all the numbers add up, the ones we've been talking about this budget season. So that means to say that I'm recommending I will move a motion at the time is appropriate that staff adjust the current budget based on council direction and come back to council with a report with the changes required.
Mayor Little?
Yeah, thank you to the chair, to the CFO. Items in the budget that we will be discussing on a yearly basis that we suspect are going to be going up in 2027, 2028, 2029, like econ, the DMQ, that the Vancouver Island major crimes unit. We know that's coming up, but we're working on the governance piece, and they told us that those costs, policing costs, those are not going to be going down. Absolutely, especially with the rebuild at West Shore, I think our rent and the accommodations are going to go up. And I'm just wondering if I would recommend that we put money aside this year to offset those costs, or that those public safety items that, in my prediction, those costs are going to go up. And that's a question sort to the CFO.
Through the chair, is a very good idea to save some more for that eventual increase from the RCMP, because we are going to we're starting to deplete that policing reserve right now in 2025 once we receive final invoices. I guess how much would council want to save for the next 5 years? It's, another, you want to do $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year? That we'll end up having to either increase taxes or like cut back on select services somewhere, one of the two, or just hope that the PILT doesn't come back with a lower assessed value and we can take all that extra money and throw it into policing.
Yeah, through the chair, obviously I agree with all that prudent discussion for the future. I'm just wondering if we understand what our surplus will be for 2025 at this point, and that might help with the discussion.
Through the chair. So we don't have the surplus for 2025 yet. Still waiting on the last invoices for December. And then once we get all that booked in, accrue for retro pay on wages and that type of thing, then we'll have a number. Should be able to have this all figured out by mid-February. That's when we'll come out with our fourth quarter budget report and show how everything worked out. And then we can have that kind of a number and see if maybe the surplus is good enough allocation for that.
Councillor Gray?
I want to support the mayor in the idea that we put some money aside. Yeah, but I guess the question, or not the question, but the comment the CEO has just made, and Mr. Creek, it sounds like that number, we might be able to define it a little bit better. Hard to bring it right back at you, Mr. Creek, but would that be reasonable? Like as those numbers come in, that you might give us some closer ideas of whether that's the right amount or what, and what we lose by doing that in terms of where the surplus would have gone otherwise.
Through the chair. Yeah, we can. I don't know if you're ever going to have enough money saved up to pay for the RCMP. That cost is just going to keep going and going and going. But what it does pull away from, right, is our wonderful asset management plan. So more money we save for the RCMP, more money is going to be required for, or is not saved for asset management and that eventual hit that the district's going to take. So one or the other.
Good point. Perhaps when we come back, we can look at that and get that idea of that trade-off, because I think you're making the point that putting the money away is a good idea, but we can only put it away once.
Councillor Shukin?
So it sounds to me, based on all the discussion here, that it might be appropriate for another budget meeting coinciding with the release of the 2025 report, and then Mr. Creek can provide us with options, tie up some of the matters that Councillor Gray has raised, and address Mayor Little's issues, or not issues, her ideas of putting away money in the reserves for policing. So I think it would be good, though, to give Mr. Creek an indication of our support for the items indicated here today or on our agenda. PTs being notable one, EOC roof, and planner as well, extra time for the planner.
Okay, so before we go much further, I think we should hear from our public. Okay, so I'd like to invite the public to the podium again, as we did with public participation, for your input, our observations and ideas or concerns, and anything else related to this meeting. Please come to the podium, state your name and the street in which you live. You have 4 minutes to speak.
Gary Lamb, Hackmore Drive. First point is whether the detail of the individual budget items will be made available to the public. The question to, presumably, I guess, the CAO, the CFO.
Mr.
Pardon me? Oh, I'm not sure I can remember all the answers. Okay, I'll do the second one then. The other one is regarding the EOC not being insured, given the fact that the determination was made in 2024 that the roof needed to be replaced, but the insurer didn't find out till sometime in 2025, 2026. Did we have insurance up until the point that in time that they found out, or does that go back retroactively to the time that we made the declaration the roof needed to be repaired? That's my questions.
Through the chair. So we'll start with the EOC one. So when we did tell them in 2024 it was going to be replaced, so they didn't put any covenant on the insurance to say that it wouldn't be covered in case of loss. But now that we've moved that project a few years off, now they're saying, okay, now we're not going to cover it. So 2025 was covered and 2024 was covered just because they didn't put any amendment into the insurance agreement with us. So
okay,
that was fine. And then as far as the detailed budget, yeah, I was going to show everything in a broken down department version for the open house for everybody to come see. But probably, I guess, at this February meeting, I can have it all laid out for you too.
and that will be detailed by line item?
Not line by line. It would be grouped into categories in each department. So salaries and wages.
Okay, then I go back to my original question. Is the detail line by line available to interested taxpayers?
Through the chair. The line by line detail would show up for the fourth quarter report, where that would be broken down. And that'll show each line for advertising, utilities, supplies, that type of thing, but not on the actual 2026 to 2030 budget.
So what you're saying, it's not available?
Correct.
And why is that?
More of a getting bogged down in a line by line question is not really the point of what council is meant for. They're supposed to provide the strategic priorities for a district, and then let the CAO enact that, and that's where he gets the CFO, fire chief, public works supervisor to find out what everything's going to cost. We come up with this budget, and then provide to council to get their review and approval. And then if they want to say, no, we won't want to spend that much money, then we just say, hey, which services and priorities do we not want to focus on for the following year?
But it comes down to the point, does the district not have to initially start on a detailed basis so that information is generated? It's just what I'm understanding, it's not being available to the public.
Through the chair. So I start off at a line by line basis and then build up into the current form that you see, but it's not generated in a report that I make to the CAO or council.
Dancing around, bottom line is it's not available to the public.
Through the chair, correct.
Councillor Shukin?
Sorry, if I can just follow up on the exchange here. We do get 4 reports annually that provide detailed cost allocations, detailed budget allocations, and then detailed expenditures as well. So I'm comfortable with the way we've approached things, and I think there is lots of room for accountability as we move along. So,
Thank you. Anyone else?
Stephanie Longstaff, Pears Road. I just have some questions. On the sheet that you showed, that was the average price paid for property taxes. It had the ups and the downs, and it had the bottom line was 2,100 and something for the property tax on a house, estimated at $1.2 million. Is that what you're saying that the tax bill will be for that value of house? Because my house is only worth a little bit more than that, and my taxes were 3 times that.
Is that your only question?
No, that's on that one.
Okay.
I need you to answer because they're not related. Sorry.
All right. So nope. So that was just for those 5 line items. Like what we do not know. Sorry, through the chair. We do not know what the tax requisition is going to be for the CRD, for the CRD hospital, the provincial school, BC Transit, BC Assessment, and Municipal Finance Authority. On the average home last year, those came up to be $2,500. So you'd add the $2,500 onto the $2,100, you'd be at about $4,600.
Much closer.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And on the sheet that talked about the number of residential and business and farm, are those farms ALR or farm status or both?
Through chair, both.
So they have both farm status and, or they can be either or, and they can be all of the above.
Through chair, they can be all of the above. So it can be a farm on ALR.
Or a farm or an ALR.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then if development is down, from what you were showing me, we have less houses, less properties. Why do we need more time for development? I haven't been following closely enough to understand what you've been talking about, what we are developing. We have less houses, we have less businesses, but we have subdivisions. Where do we have subdivisions?
Through the chair, yeah. So there's not less development. Like the vacant lots shot up by 22, which was like 33%, and that relates to the Buckingham Estates project. And so all of them have to go through some process, right? We've already received one DVP request for those, and all of the work that's related into that has to go through the planner.
Okay, so the Buckingham development will be the majority of that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shukin, did you have a comment with this?
you know, I just follow up on Ms. Longstaff's first question and observation. I think it is common for folks to look at their tax bill and think everything is Machosen. And Mr. Creek covered this off. But again, there are other taxing authorities that basically piggyback onto our tax bill. One of the most significant is the school tax, which can be almost as much as the municipal portion of the property tax. Am I correct on that?
Through the chair, pretty close. Like, it's just a little bit under. Like on this average property, it was $1,278 last year. Well, we were collecting $1,500, so it's right on par.
Great. And I guess my point is, we don't set the school tax, the hospital tax, the transit levy, CRD rate, all those other things. They come extra after the municipal tax. So just thank you for the opportunity to clarify that.
Thank you for the clarification, but I've been paying property taxes for a long time and I know how to read them. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public would like to speak?
Thank you. My name is Sarah Herring, and I live on East Souk Road. I'm a representative of the BCSPCA Wild Ark facility in Machosen. I wasn't planning to speak tonight. I was just here to listen, but I just wanted to thank the committee and council for the reconsideration of the property tax exemption decision, and we look forward to participating in the grant and aid session in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, committee, Councillor Gray.
I just had a couple of questions about the budget in general, and I understood that today we're meant to cast our eyes back to what we've already talked about. and we've added a few things and we've subtracted a few things along the way. And I wanted to know, and I'm just not a good recollection, but in terms of ditching, we've had the atmospheric rivers this year again, and I wondered, are we doing, I got some money in the budget for ditching this year?
Through the chair. So we have increased the amount of ditching just by the regular inflation amount, bumped up most items by. We didn't do a whole lot of it in 25 or 24. If we like to spend more, kind of waiting on a few other items to get lined up before we go full bore into it, because there's the testing of the dirt that comes out. If it's contaminated, it ends up having to be shipped across the Malahat and becomes very expensive. And that's one of the reasons why the district has generally in the past avoided doing it, because it turns into a 6-figure project. But if you would like to add more to it, because Public Works has identified quite a few, thanks to the 6 weeks of rain, that there are a bunch of areas where ditches and culverts are clogged and overgrown and need a significant amount of work. But I'll leave that up to council.
Thank you. I was just thinking about that issue that we've got with, potentially flooding or blowing out roads or whatever. So I would be interested in a recommendation from staff if that number should change. In other words, if we need more money, please let us know, and we can take a look at it. It seems to me it's an important one given the heavy rainfalls we've got. And I'm not speaking against the idea that we not ditch in some locations, but I understand there are locations where that'll become a concern now with the heavy rains. I had a different question, jumping around a little bit, but the FOI budget, I wonder how that's done and if we have adequate funds for next year, given our experience this year. And that's sort of a question, I guess, tied into the quarterly reports.
Through the chair. So all the FOI requests basically come out of our contractor budget in administration. So for 2025, worked out fairly well. It is over budget, but that's because we also include legal costs in there as well. It's hard to estimate how many FOI requests you're going to end up getting, and then whether or not staff internally can do it all, or if we have to reach out to a third party for it. So I could speak with the corporate officer and see what her idea is and what she'll need help with, because I know we do have the election this year, and she's going to have to spend quite a bit of time getting that prepared.
Yeah, super. Just wanted to mention it in case it's something you wanted to adjust before we finalize everything. And I did have some questions about capital budgets, and I wonder if we're dealing with those. Did you want comments on that today, Mr. Creek, through the chair, or are we going to have another meeting to talk about some of those things? But some are still outstanding, I guess, from our discussion that we've gone through.
Through the chair, today's main focus is on that EOC route, because that's the only one where the insurance is actually due before the start of March. So I just need to get an answer on whether I can tell them, yep, we're moving forward with it, or whether, yeah, we'll take the liability and hope for the best. But we'll dive into the rest of that in February, March.
Super, thank you. Well, maybe I'll just mention so other members of the council are aware, I had a conversation with the CEO and CFO this week about a question I was wondering about, and it relates to the road budget. And I noticed that back in 2021, we budgeted $1.38 million. 2022, not that different, $1 million. And 2025, we spent $664,000, so quite a dip. And then our proposal is that this year we'd spend $800,000, again, much less than previously spent. And so the CEOs agreed that the CFO would take a look at modeling raising the 2026 roads budget to, I think we talked about $1 million, the amount that'll be amortized, to see how much that would reduce that $3 million funding gap we've heard about for our reserves. In other words, that we would lift the amount of spending if the roads warranted, repairs, rather than delay repairs and then down the many years later or 10 or 20 years later, take on a much bigger hit in terms of repairing the roads. So that's something that's coming along. And I think maybe of interest is not that the modeling would answer the question entirely, but it would let us know what kind of impact it has, and then it would be necessary to go to Public Works. And I think probably our engineer to tell us whether or not we could advance a few more roads every year by increasing the amount of money going towards maintenance and repairs, basically to hold off future costs that we know we'll need in terms of asset replacement later. The other thing that I wondered in the capital project mentioned, because I'm talking roads, is bridges. And we had $142,000 in our 2025 budget for the Flesh Road Bridge, but didn't complete it. But in those heavy rains, we learned that the abutment is getting worn away quite badly. And our staff, Public Works, put in some temporary sort of Band-Aid fix. But I wondered if that would come forward still in our 2026 budget. Question through the chair to Mr. Creek.
Through the chair, my last conversation with the CAO about it was, I believe he's still waiting on another engineer report to finalize what was actually going to be done with the bridge. And that has to be brought back to council, say, okay, do we want the pedestrian bridge, the car bridge, the vehicle bridge, or just remove the whole thing? But I haven't heard. I think that's still in progress.
Thank you. I think one thing that was observed by some people who were there in the heaviest rain was that the gas line was almost in the water. And so at the moment we've heard that we're responsible. If we act and replace the bridge, we have to put the gas line back. But I wonder if it might be worth notifying Fortis that their line as currently placed is at risk of being taken away by stormwater. So they may want to take action even before we replace the bridge, or turn it to pedestrian, or whatever the decision is, just to let them know that piece of their infrastructure is at risk.
Okay, I have a question for the CAO. In regards to Mr. Councillor Gray's comment with the paving and road maintenance, one of the reasons that you had contracted a company to come and do an assessment of all our roads was so that we have a better idea of what our maintenance program and our budgeting program will be going forth. And I suspect that with your guidance and the CFO with his guidance on our finances, that you'll keep us going in that trajectory based on those reports. Is this correct?
Yep, through the chair, that's perfect. And both comments are valid. A modeling exercise for cash flow and verifying our asset management plan, both can be done hand in hand, and we can bring back some information to council. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we have the next steps. We've already covered off some of these things here. One of the questions is, does council want to add EOC roof repair to the 2026 capital budget? The next is, does council want to make any changes to the current operating budgets? Third, if there are no changes, staff will prepare for an open house in February or for residents to attend. If changes are requested, staff will come back with a new report detailing the changes to overall budget and tax rates with an open house to be held in March. There will be a finance meeting April 16th to review the final budget and tax rates rather. So recommendations, we have 1, 2, and 3. Committee, where would you like to work through on this, which is priorities?
I'm happy to move the recommendation 1 from the staff that council approve adding the EOC roof repair to the 2026 capital budget for $45,000 with funds coming from the building replacement reserve.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Shukin. Any further discussion? Mayor Little, are you there? Okay, can't see you. Oh, there you are. Thank you. Any other comments on that, Councillor Shukin or Gray? Sorry.
Yeah, I just want us to remember when we decide, if we decide later to abandon this building with a new fire hall, this building, according to earlier reports we've had, has 35 years of life left, plus it'll have a new roof this year. And it seems to me we should be cognizant of that as we move forward. At the moment, I believe the option 1A we looked at for the fire hall moves the EOC group over to the new fire hall. But we have this building now with a brand new roof, 35 years of life left. So let's think about that when we look at options and our analysis for what we do in the future on the fire hall. With that, I'm happy to vote in favor.
Thank you. I agree with you. And as Mayor Little had pointed out, we have some very important assets within that building to protect. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And then the next one, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we staff adjust the current budget based on council's direction today and come back to council with a report on the changes requested. Thank you.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Do you have a seconder or comment?
I would second a motion maybe that indicates we come back in February. Is that reasonable? Okay, because
I'm happy with that.
Ms. Barnes maybe can adjust the, okay. I'd second the motion then.
Yeah, we've cited several things, breaking out some of the line items so they're easier to understand. Surpluses will come out in the fourth quarter, as we know, the PTE, the planner, some background, some details on that, ditching FY costs. We have already budgeted for election costs, that sort of thing, and some other topics too, sure. Okay, so any other discussion on that motion? Mayor Little?
Yeah, will that also increase potential increases for the items that we know will increase in the near future? Let's discuss it.
Through the chair. Which items were you thinking about? Sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking keep on thinking Boise in particular.
So through the chair, yeah. Ecom, I believe, 100% set now. They've given us what their costs are going to be for 2026. VIMQ, we could even remove the whole thing because we know we're not going to get charged for it. I'm just kind of smoothing out the tax increase on the police side for that. But we will have, well, I shouldn't say will have, should have all the accommodation costs and civilian staffing, and have an idea of where our policing reserves are at by the end of 2025. I gotta imagine it's probably also held up by their year end over in the city of Langford, as to why we don't have the bill yet. But I'm sure they're just finalizing their books as well. So hopefully I'll have that by the end of the month or in early February in order to come back in February with the updated budget.
Thank you, through the chair, not talking about for the whole thing, we suspect that they will be going out from everything. So the
Councillor Shukin.
Through you, Councillor Donaldson, a question to Mr. Craig. Do you have sufficient guidance from us to include the additional amounts for the grant and aid and also the planner, her extra time?
Through chair? Yeah. Right now it doesn't sound like there's any pushback on that, so I'm happy to keep moving forward and then come back in February if anybody has second thoughts. Have a discussion then.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Councillor Donald, I had a different issue I wanted to raise, or part of the package here.
Okay.
So about the permissive tax exemptions, I'm very pleased to see that the change that's been made here. And I want to let people know that I've resigned as a community hall trustee. I consulted with legal counsel, and I'm now free to speak my mind moving forward and speak to the issues at hand. And I want us to sort of listen to the people, so I'd like to make a motion to sort of, I can explain, but my motion would be, whereas council directed staff on September 15th, 2025, and these are the words from the motion, to provide a grant for the district portion of the 2026 property taxes for the properties identified by council. Be it resolved that the Finance Committee now recommend that council direct staff to provide an additional grant for the other taxing authorities portion of the 2026 property taxes for those same properties, and that those property owners be so notified. As a seconder, then I would happy to explain.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councillor Gray. Do we have a seconder to his motion?
I'm going to make a comment if I could before.
For discussion, if you'd like.
Yeah, I struggle with this one a little bit because I feel like it's in notice of motion territory. I'm sympathetic to what Councillor Gray has brought forward. But without getting too bogged down and too, religious on Robert's Rules of Order, I feel like it's sophisticated enough and goes back far enough that it might be better to do as a notice of motion so we can see it and have everyone, community members as well, be aware that it is coming for discussion. At the very least, I might want our deputy corporate officer to weigh in on that as well. So,
Councillor Gray?
Yeah, I'll just say what I wanted to do is, it seems that we're reaching a decision to replace the grants. Asked a moment ago, Councillor Shukin, to the CFO, and I would just like to make sure that we follow through and get council's approval to do this. It seems to me people have waited a good length of time now, and it's coming up, and I think it would be good to formalize it so that it's not meant as a trick or anything, just simply let's confirm it. These are the organizations, let's give them the grants. We know who they are, they've made applications to us. The council, without me being there, approved it, approved the groups. And so I just like to do it. And I think it's proper because it's in our agenda package here, permissive tax exemptions. And I'm just saying, good, I'd like to take that and move it to council, let's get it approved. Because we can't approve it here. We don't have the authority. So with a seconder, I would explain a little bit more, but not much, just to say that's my interest. It's kind of like just get on with it.
Councillor Shukin?
yeah, I'm very sympathetic to what Councillor Gray has brought forward. My concern, and again, I've spoken to this a number of times now, but my concern with this particular, the way this is introduced, I feel like there's a bit of a procedure breach. Not breach. I'm not sure procedures being followed here. So, I think it would be great if we brought it back as a full notice of motion. And
Sayo Pat, do you have a comment for us on the procedure?
Yeah, through the chair and on the procedure question, if we could just dissect what Councillor Gray is stating in the motion, if it relates to the item in the agenda, if we can understand how it relates to decision from the item in the agenda, and if the CFO can confirm that yes, that's forwarding, that's facilitating that decision, then it's understandable. But I think we need to dissect what you're asking versus the request from the CFO on the agenda.
Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that council decided to provide the municipal portion to the group. So that sets up who we're talking about. That's the only reason for the just to say that's the group, those are the organizations. That's the whereas portion. These groups we've decided to give the municipal portion to. And I'm seeing the notes right here. It says that we've got $95,000 for the other taxing authority grant. And we didn't speak against that. Everybody says that's a good idea. So keep that moving forward. And I'm only saying, could we get council then to make a good decision on, or final decision on that now? Well, not now, but when they meet, in order that we can let everybody know this problem, or not problem, the issue has been addressed. So I'm saying it's here in this document, so I'd just like to recommend to council that they approve this amount going to the groups that have previously been identified. That's as simple as that.
Okay, so we've also made a motion that staff review some of the comments that we have and topics that we've brought up here, including some of the feedback we've gotten from the public, for us to have another meeting next month. So this is something, because we haven't approved anything yet, that we have this come back to us more formally, and perhaps with our deputy corporate officer giving us a legislative perspective on it. Does that make a difference here, Councillor McRae?
I'm happy with that. I don't want to go to all the way to the end of the budget process and approve this in April. That just seems to me to be too long. If we're making a decision, doing it just like we've moved other motions in this chamber, as we've been discussing the finance packages, and I can go through here and find a few motions we've made during the meeting to confirm that's what we're doing, to give direction. I think the CFO said she had need a motion on that, and on some things doesn't need a motion to keep them moving. We did that for capital projects, I think. I think that's correct. And so I just want to get it nailed down so that we've got a lot of upset in the community. It just seems to me we can take care of that pretty quickly by getting council to pass a motion as regards the material we're looking at today. So I'm lifting it from this committee, which we're going to come back and look at it again, but I want to get it to council so the council can make a decision toot sweet. So I don't see a procedural issue at all.
Okay, so we have a motion, we don't have a seconder.
Be interested to hear what Mr. Creek says.
Through the chair, thank you. So what's been put into the report today saying, okay, looks like we're going to add 95,000 for other taxing authorities. Total estimate is likely to be higher than that based on everybody else's requisition. Is that being approved in the budget today to provide that money to anybody? It's just there. It's like every other budget item, may or may not be spent. Sounds like Councillor Gray's motion is to spend that money and lock that in. We do currently have a meeting on, I believe, February 9th at the Committee of the Whole, where we're asking everybody, all the organizations that want to have their other taxing authority taxes paid, to come make a presentation if they would like, or at least submit an application for council to review and vote on there. So this kind of jumps it, or we just say we don't need the Committee of the Whole meeting on February 9th related to the grants. If council is going to approve everything now, because then there'd be no point in them showing up and indicating what their organizations are doing with the funding and that type of thing.
Councillor Gray.
So I wasn't thinking people had to do another application process to come before us. My understanding was they all filled in an application, completed it, got it to us. Council decided that those groups would be eligible for the municipal portion being paid. And I don't know why we put them through another application process. I think Councillor Schuken and the mayor met with most of the groups as well, unless there's questions and we think we shouldn't proceed with them. But I thought we're clear about who the groups are and that we just want to get on with it. So that's the rationale. So I wouldn't put people through another application process. The last time we asked them to do applications, then we kind of pulled the rug out from under them after they completed applications. So I wonder how it would feel on the other side to be asked again to apply for the same situation. But so I guess I'm curious about that process, and I would just move it to council and get her done.
Councillor Schuken, can you share as to how that came to be? Was there a need to do some updates on gathering information? Is this something that we're going to do every 2 years, or where are we at with that? Because I've not heard a report as well as to the change of doing that.
I mean, there is a bit of improvisation because of the situation this year, and I think because we're having a relook at things. So no, I don't believe that this is going to be something we do as we go. We are addressing an issue that we've come to recognize for sure. In terms of Councillor Gray's motion, I would request that he brings it back as a notice of motion. I would appreciate, number one, seeing the motion, having a chance to absorb it and read it. And number two, we're talking about new information that Councillor Gray has provided us tonight, which is to say he has no conflict of interest. So there's a bunch of things I think, again, procedurally, we should do properly. So.
Councillor Gray?
I'll just respond to that and say I think that we've heard it's proper. If nobody wants to second it, that's fine. But I think the procedure is in keeping with Robert's rules and all of that. We're just risk taking, as the CEO asked, is it related to an item in the agenda? Yes, it is, that we've been discussing tonight. And I'm just wanting to move it along quicker than others might want to do. That's okay. So then can I put this in the finance budget discussion? Or do I ask the chair to put it in, or how does it work? Or you want it to go some other, you want to notice a motion at council table? What's the process that, I don't think this is against process or anything. I don't know why we go through a different process. No motions can come out of the documents that we have in front of us and the issues we have in front of us. Perhaps I could ask the CEO to clarify what's wrong with this, with the motion coming forward today.
CEO Pat?
Well, I understand you don't have a seconder, so that's one clarity. And I understand from CFO that we don't need decisions tonight from the committee. It all goes to council. So I believe there'll be an opportunity at the council for notice of motion or decisions on the reports that are brought forward in the agendas for council.
To the chair, thank you. Okay,
So where we're at with that is we have a motion, there was no seconders, so it doesn't go forth. And Councillor Gray can bring it forth at either a council meeting, committee of the whole, which should be later, and we have the presentations, or at the next finance meeting, which I do not know what the date will be, because we don't have a date here. That's where we're at with that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then maybe I would just, we did have a number of discussions about capital projects at the last meeting. And subsequent to that, we received the Parks and Trails Master Plan. And I think there might be a need, or not a need, but be appropriate, given what's in the master plan, to perhaps take a look back at some of the capital ideas that came forward, just so that they match up, rather than proceed as we've got in some of the capital projects, and then looking at the Parks and Trails Master Plan and having them sort of knock heads a little bit. So we can bring that up when we get back to the capital projects.
Okay. Any other comments about the meeting this evening? Okay. Seeing none, I would ask for an adjournment. Motion by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.